Hey guys, welcome back to the POA Farmer. I'm Kristen, and today I wanted to chat with you a little bit about something that keeps coming up in the gardening community, and I just thought it warranted a bit of a conversation. Because of the fact that I am putting all of my new beds together and establishing some spaces in the front yard, trying to get prepared for the new season, which starts really in about 5 weeks for me. I have all of my seeds going. There's way more than I need. I'll tell you what I'm planning on doing with those in just a bit. But in order to plant all of these wonderful little seedlings I've been growing, I need to set up my beds. And while I started to think about what I needed and what I would want to put out there, I kept seeing and hearing conversations about store-bought compost and some of the things that we're finding in it, and how unfortunately some of it's been pretty detrimental to the crops. I'm not here to go on a huge rant against chemicals and everything used, because honestly I'm not equipped to speak towards all of it. What I will say is you cannot deny that everything has a cost. That is a basic rule of economics. It was one of those things that one of my high school teachers, Mr. Balthrop, in high school economics, he taught us right off the bat. First thing, and one of the only things I remember very well, that literally everything in life has a cost. It may not always be financial. Sometimes it's the cost of one choice, meaning you can't choose the other option. But all decisions lead to that aspect of a cost. So when it comes to using pesticides or chemicals to help grow your plants or protect your plants, you have to also consider, what does it cost? Now, for you, the cost of paying for it financially may outweigh the cost of losing your crops. I'm more excited to hear that people are gardening than I am to condemn how they choose to do so, because if more people spend their time out in the garden, it truly is my belief that more people will end up moving towards a more sustainable life and really less chemicals, because the more time you spend out there and see how pretty it can be without the extra stuff, I just feel like that could lead you to using less of the extra things. That being said, I don't have a giant compost pile. I don't have a lot that I can just throw into my garden beds. I don't have a massive pile of soil. I've had to purchase things, and there is an issue that we're seeing in a lot of composts that are store-bought right now, that there is an herbicide that was used, and unfortunately it's getting in the compost. And you can tell me, well, Kristen, I only buy organic compost. Some of the better organic compost may also be exposed, because it's not just about what gets used on the crop itself. What about what was used around the crop and might have blown in? So I'm not saying don't do it, because I buy compost myself. I'm just saying we have to be careful. I have heard that you can test your compost. You can either send it off to get it tested to make sure it's all safe, or you can do the cheaper version, which means you basically get a pinto bean, for example. You can buy a giant bag of them. They're cheap, lima beans, whatever, and put it in a bit of soil, see if it sprouts, and then see how well it does. And when I say soil, I mean like that compost, the particular bag that you're testing. It doesn't take long for them to germinate, and you'll know pretty quickly if they're doing okay. So that's one way you can test it. I know that you can do things to remedy the compost and the soil if you've already put it out there and it's hindering some of your plant life. Compost teas is one thing. You can put your own organic matter. And so as I listened to these conversations, I really wanted to take a second to chat about what I'm doing to help my soil and my plan on what I'm going to do with the compost I do have, because it needs to be used. I already bought it, for one, And for another, in some ways, I think it's better than nothing. Now, that being said, I am getting my worm farm together soon, so that's coming in. I do have a compost tumbler. It's not it's not fantastic, but it's not bad by any means. I'm just not very diligent. I really need to work on that. I'm not great at turning it and putting things in. I struggle with the constant need that compost needs, and you wouldn't think it would need it, but safety says it does. So what I wanted to think about on top of that is what's something easier I can do. I've been reading Ruth Stout's book, or I should say I've been listening to her audio, which basically just brings the argument for mulching and trying to make your garden easy to maintain. And so the basic premise of what she says is to put a fine or a heavy couple inches, I should say, of hay on top of your garden beds surrounding your plants, and it will help mulch and suppress the weeds. But as it decomposes, it adds nutrients back into your bed. Now, that's where my hope and inspiration really comes from. It's not just the mulching itself. It's the concept of putting back into your bed, adding that organic material back in to help give nutrients to your plants and to make your soil more rich. When I ripped up all of those shrubs in my front bed, the first thing that hit me was how good that soil seemed. It was rich, it was deep, we had earthworms all over the place. It was good, solid soil. And so, one, I put as much of that dirt that I could get, from the roots of the shrubs back into that bed because I don't want to lose any of that nutrient. But all that's been done for that bed is having the shrubs there, their leaves fall. I think at some point someone put wood chip mulch down because I find little pieces. But that's about it. I have not done a thing to take care of that bed. So how did it get so healthy? Besides just having plentiful of earthworms. But why would the earthworms want to be there? Well, the leaves that fall and biodegrade and decompose, it brings that nutrients back. So with my beds out here, I talked about how I've bought cheaper soil and had to sift through to get all of the wood chips out. And it's a beast. For 2 giant bags, I get like a tub of the sifted light and air and fluffy stuff. That's a lot of work. I'm talking a couple hours per bag to get not a lot of yield. So I'm going to stop buying the cheaper version of soil because in the end, it may have saved me financially in some sense, but if you go with the old adage, time is money, did it really? And what I've been doing with those wood chips is layering it at the bottom of my bed and setting some of it aside to mulch with around my plants once I actually put them in. So I'm sandwiching my soil. I have the earth layer, which has my grass right now. Then I have the wood chips going over it. And then I have gardening soil and compost. Once I put my plants in, I'll add a layer of mulch. Each year, that's going to slowly degrade and decompose. And I'll have to add a new layer and a new layer. And throughout the years, my soil is going to get to be super dense and rich. This year's garden may not be as fruitful as I would like. I think the beds that are more established and have been there for a while will probably do a little bit better. My brand new beds might be. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll be bad. But I'm really curious to see what it's going to look like in a couple years because it's that decomposition that really makes the soil good. I'm pulling dead leaves from my front yard. I'm grabbing those twigs and sticks and chopping them up. I'm adding back to my beds from this natural greenery I have around me. Now, Ruth Stout even said, which kind of threw me off a little bit, it made sense, but I'm just gonna tell you. She would take her garden scraps and kitchen scraps. So any pruning she did from the plants, if she did any, she was not one to do much. And then as she chopped up her veggies and had any leftovers of leaves and things like that, she just threw them back out on the bed. That's it. No composter, no nothing else. She just threw them out there and let them break apart. Now, I can't quite do that because of a POA. I don't think they would like it. Eventually, it will probably look gross or smell gross. If I was on a farm and more acreage and didn't have to worry about people, I might not mind as much. But I also have the dogs and a tiny human who, with my luck, would go and play in it. And it will be soggy, gross, and disgusting at some point. So, I'll instead, using the same concept, she also grabbed, like I said, the leaves and the twigs and everything from her yard. So that's more of what I'm going to use as a true mulch. And I'm going to take all of my kitchen scraps and everything else, and that is garden byproduct, for lack of a better way to describe it, and add it to my worm farm. Because then I can use the worm castings to put back out there. Now, what that means is, as a gardener, you have to have long game vision. And truly, I think we need to do that just as a human race. We have been short-sighted for a long time. And instant gratification is a big thing, especially my generation. We don't want to have to wait for things. And so it's a test of patience. Battery died. We need to be more mindful of what it means to have this long game vision as a gardener. In the gardening community, we're good at having patience when it comes to the sense of you baby these seedlings, you grow them up, and eventually you get to harvest, and then you have to wait for another season, or you found ways around it. Probably a little bit more about that instant gratification issue. But we don't get instant crop. You have to work for it. You have to wait. You have to put in the time and, in many cases, the effort. The same needs to be considered for our soil. When we want rich garden beds, because you do, trust me, we need the good stuff in our soil. It's not something that you can just throw together. You can do good things for your soil for that year. You can add fertilizers, natural or otherwise. You can give your plants everything you need to have a bountiful crop that year. But amending your soil, adding more nutrients, and continuing to build up those beds, that's where you get the really good stuff. That's where we end up with a rich soil that feeds the plants a little bit more readily. So my challenge for you guys, and myself truly, is to really consider what all we could be doing to give our soil more health. Is it something that's instant gratification? Or is it something you had to work for? Is it, I'm putting all of these things into my bed so I'll have a good harvest this year? Or is it, I'm hoping for a good harvest this year, but I'm banking on next year's? So I just wanted to talk about that briefly. A lot of the things that I'm putting into my soil, all those wood chips, they're not gonna decompose quickly. It is long game in that sense. I'm going to continue to put that organic matter back into my beds and my soil, and I'm going to test my compost that I have. Honestly, there's even plants that you can put in your garden that would help with the compost that may not be that great. Sunflowers have been known, or I think it's been said, I should confirm the studies, but I'm going with it. It will pull radiation, as sunflower can pull radiation from the ground. That was pretty cool. I wonder how many other plants can pull the bad things. I mean, for us, carbon monoxide is not good, and yet what do plants need to then give us oxygen? So I know this is a little bit of a different chat than what I'm used to with you guys. I try not to just talk at you, and I wanted to have the conversation and really think about what we could be doing, should be doing, or what our opinions are on all of the above. I hope you will leave me some comments and recommendations if you can think of things that might help me as I build my beds up. I have 3 true new beds right now, 1 newer bed that I put in this season, another bed that I started at the end of last season, and then some spaces that were from the year before. So most of my garden is pretty new. And honestly, the soil that has the least amount of newness to it is that front bed where the shrubs were. I'm really interested to see how my growth compares with my new beds versus that one that I'm not really adding much of anything to. I'm just raking up what is currently there soil-wise, adding a little bit to help with just the new seeds and letting it grow. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I have more videos coming up. I just wanted a quick chat, and I gotta get back to work because 1, I like having a job, and 2, there's a lot of work still to do in the garden world. So we'll chat again soon. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Talk to you later. Y'all take care now.